How would your life look if you were just timid around every woman that you saw? And if your life was filled with constant resentment because maybe you feel like the best times you had with women were in high school? How closed off would your life feel if you were never sure that you maximized your potential and that you filled your life to the fullest that you could by being a man of strength, courage, and authenticity? That's the gist of this question to me. Why would you not want to better yourself in every way, shape, or form? So, welcome back to another episode of 4x4 Recall, the show for entrepreneurs and business professionals where I help you create more dates, more fun, and more meaning in your life. I'm your host, Chad Tabery. Let's get into it. So, a while back, my wife asked me, one day she noticed I was consuming several podcasts and I was getting back into a lot of dating material. My wife asked me, why are you consuming so much of this material? But a few things happened that I noticed when I did start consuming the material. And I want to talk about some of those in this episode, and then I got a few bonuses at the end of it. So stick around with me and let's walk through these. What I noticed personally, before I get into the list, what I noticed personally is that it reinvigorated a certain charm or flow or charisma that I already knew that I had in me. It reignited this certain passion for commanding the energy in a room and for cracking a smile in the person across me at the table and for building rapport with whomever, with groups and individuals alike. I remember when I was at the top of my game in dating, I remember I could walk up to a girl and I could see it would all flow before my eyes exactly how this was going to go. I knew if she's going to be half interested in what I said or absolutely smitten. I knew that we were going to be on the first date within 5 days. I knew that she was going to be laughing and filled with mystery and essentially falling in love. Like it becomes a very predictable process. And what I forgot about subconsciously, or maybe consciously as you chase down different relationships, what I forgot about is that changes everything. When I sat across the table from the two founders of the first tech company I was in and talked to them about my compensation and the pay, that confidence and that ability to navigate that social interaction was backed up by my ability to go out and be charming and date successfully. So these are things that I really want you to embrace. Don't lean into automatically thinking, oh, I'm unfaithful or oh, I'm cheating. First off, we'll do a whole other episode of what cheating even means anyway. Cheating is your agreements. So what are you actually betraying? Is it wrong for you to want your boss to think favorably about you? Is it wrong for you to want to walk in a room and know that other women are checking you out and that you have a certain advantage over other men in that room? I would argue it's not, but we'll get into that. So reason number one, married men really should consume dating content. First off, your job never stops. And that's a really important point. I talk to guys a lot that are when they're re-entering the dating market. And this is sort of where it slipped off. Like if you were to look at why things went wrong, it's because they thought that they were good now. And the worst is high school, or let's use college as a more realistic example. You were in a fraternity, she was in a sorority, you were in some sort of pseudo leadership position in that fraternity, and then you guys end up getting married and you both went off with separate careers. Well, you, the dude, I'm talking to you, men, you started wearing sweatpants everywhere you went. I was just at church at a very nice church here in the neighborhood. And like 20% of the guys, they're wearing cutoff shorts and they got a smoking hot wife with them. Well, you got to a point where you said, oh, I did it. I'm safe. I'm settled, which personally is really one of the huge flaws in the way women have been shaping the masculine narrative over the last 40 years. But that's for a different episode, and we'll come back to that. I promise, because I know it's a juicy one. But the challenge is your job never stops. Like, trust me, she knows when she looks good or not. She cares about the way that she looks. She's putting skin products on. She has orbiters in her life, even for you men out there that have faithful wives. I have a smoking hot wife. I know 100% that 100 minimum of those dudes in her Instagram that are sending hearts and sending whatever, they're just waiting for old Chad here to drop out of the picture. They're orbiting. That's the case for any man with an attractive wife. So one, congratulations, you have an attractive wife. But two, you have to understand that you can't start slipping. If you want some other man to step up and fill that gap, then start slipping. But if you want to be on your game, you can't be slipping. Secondly, leading your family. Leading is a full-time job. I had 23 employees at my second tech firm, offices around the world, and I was going through a divorce at one point, and I started to notice that my energy was getting very low. And I took my team out to dinner, and I had to be honest with myself and retroactively look back and say, did I serve my team best in that moment? And the answer was no, because I was letting my personal stuff get in the way. So, same with your wife, same with your family. Leadership is a full time job. Going somewhere is the risky business. And I don't mean leadership as in telling people what to do. What I mean is you're a man with a vision and you're going in that direction. That's literally leading from the front. You can look back and see people behind you following in your footsteps, looking to you for reassurances, and that job never stops. Thirdly, on the still point number one though, stay with me. Your job never stops providing humor and challenge. Think through this one. A question I get sometimes is, where does the modern man fit into the modern dating scene? The men have gone soft. The men, women can make their own money. Women are outpacing men in every measurement when it comes to advanced degrees, advancing in the workplace, competency and project management, however you want to put it. Well, women still want, women still crave, women still need, I would dare say, humor and challenge. And you as the man, that's your job to provide that humor and challenge. That has been miscaricatured over the years. If you think about Homer Simpson or Tim the Toolman Taylor or King of Queens, although he did a really good job holding down like a masculine role. It's subtle, but if you watch him, he did fantastic on that. But we've over caricaturized that sort of humor and challenge, but that's still why you're here. I think there's a scene in the new Wonder Woman, shout out to Gal Gadot, dang girl, in there where she's fascinated by a man. And for all intents and purposes, and again, this is a thought exercise. Don't go crazy on me talking about like fictional characters, whatever. They're on an island where men weren't necessary. I think they used them to like procreate or whatever, but they had some solution for everything. Well, she was fascinated by the man when she met him. And that should be your role in this life to you're like I explain it as the lighthouse that the waves are crashing against on a daily basis. And your job is to make sure you never waver. Your job, that is integrity. That's the strength, courage, and authenticity to have the integrity of being the leader that you chose to be when you asked this woman out. Does that make sense? And that job never stops. All right. And then creating the mystery. When the mystery's over, the story ends, your woman closes the book. This is my number one rebuttal to I don't want to play games. Listen, nobody wants to get jerked around. That's what they mean. Nobody wants to be malevolently manipulated. That's what they mean. But 150 million women still went out and bought copies of 50 Shades of Grey. Your women want the game. Your women want the dance. Your women want to be swept off their feet. Your women want to be led to where they want to go. Did you hear the end of that sentence? Because are you with me now? It's recording on Sunday, release it on Monday. We're preaching. Your women want to be led where they want to go. They don't want to drag you there. They don't want to bring you up to speed and put your hand in hers and then have you get her there. They want to be led to where they want to go. So they have an end in mind also, and they want you to choose to be the leader. They want you to step up to lead this dance so that they can tell their friends about their 50 Shades of Grey story, so that they can tell their friends how mysterious you are and how they work so hard to build the relationship and maintain the emotional connection in that relationship. So men build in the world in the masculine sense, and women repair, women create relationship, women nurture, women foster and cultivate that relationship. But you, as the man, owe it to her to constantly be bringing her on that emotional journey. And that is the mystery. So I've had other episodes where I talk about how you own the mystery and how to preserve that. You can go look those up, do it another time. But just remember, it doesn't end. So when you learn when you learn tactical things about gambits or games or how to have fun on a date, how to master first date, well, take your wife out to the same date. I've been married 5 years now to my wife. And when I set a date, I don't tell her where we're going because that's part of the fun for her. And I don't want to ruin that experience for her because I know that I owe it to her. And that is, if you look at my perfect first date framework, that's first date 101. That's excellent dating 101. I don't slip on it because we've been married 5 years. That doesn't mean she doesn't have input. That doesn't mean that she doesn't have recommendations. That doesn't mean that she thinks all my dates are amazing. It's just, I know that I owe her the mystery. Okay, point number 2, why I strongly encourage married men to consume dating material. The best dating advice is really about being a better, more confident version of you. And who doesn't want to be better and more confident? Really think that through. If you move past the tactics in dating, because this show is not about the tactics, this show is about the principles. If you move past the tactics in dating, ultimately, it is about being more confident. Ultimately, it's about approaching the world with non-neediness. Ultimately, hang on now, take this one, married men. Ultimately, it's about unconditional love. It's about pouring your gift into the world with no coercion, no expectation, no condition. Listen, the women about to send me some fan mails because they want that. Unconditional love is a rarity in this environment, honestly. And I'm telling you to crack your heart open in a sense to make yourself vulnerable and figure out what that unconditional love is. Be that better man. And when you listen to dating advice, you're going to be that better man. Principles, again, also in the dating books, there's dating books I still revisit to this day. I read a couple of them almost every year when I'm just feeling lost or confused, and not just in marriage. Because again, let's be clear, I am a dating advice guy. Don't come to me for marriage advice. We'll have that in another episode as to why, but that's a heavy topic. Anyway, my point is when I'm confused about where I'm going in business, when I'm confused about how I'm relating with other people in my life, when I'm confused about how I'm interacting with my children, I still revisit some of these books like David Data's The Way of the Superior Man. It will, if you break those chapters apart, you're dealing with daddy issues. You're dealing with mommy issues. You're dealing with peer competition from other men about if you're honestly leaning into your edge, living on the edge. This is real advice and it makes you a better man. And in my opinion, you should not discard this. And this is funny to me. I don't take this personally, but I even have close friends. When this channel finally distilled from what I would call business advice, leadership advice, whatever, to really understand that I'm talking about men dating, I lost a lot of followers on that because they don't like the material. They have a stigma around the material. They think that it's not for them. So, this argument is not necessarily to bring them back, but I want you to really consider what you're learning when you're consuming that dating advice, the good dating advice, the principle-based dating advice. Okay. Also about being a better, more confident version of you. You deserve that version of you. Your wife deserves that version of you. You tracking? Hear me now. Your wife deserves the best version of you. So why would you stop learning? And it's not about making more money. Most of my target audience, if you think about it, is men who crush it in the boardroom. And then I hear them talk on the phone to their woman and they fall apart, literally fall apart. So these are not, while these are transferable skills, most men don't transfer them correctly. So your wife deserves that best version of you, and getting a pay raise isn't necessarily it. So you can't get this out of your head that you don't need this advice anymore, that you don't need good dating advice. Okay. Number 3, leadership and frame control impact every aspect of your life. I've used the example of the pay raises. I'm not supposed to drink on camera, am I? I use the advice of pay raises. I use the example of negotiation skills. I use the example of winning a room over. That's influence, that's persuasion. Okay, that is leadership and frame control. Let's say someone's messing with you. I had a new group of guys. I was in a business meeting near the University of Alabama. Shout out to Tuscaloosa. Man, that was one gorgeous town, and 2 beautifully maintained campus. But in that, these are stakeholders of mine that I don't always get to see. So we're in person. They had a first opportunity to sort of like rib me, to test who I am as a man. And this is a great line from David Datas. He talks about the fact that when you're in a potential for violent social environment, men going to war, so to speak, you're going to find ways to test that resolve first through teasing, hazing, etc. Well, if you have good frame control, you know how to flip things around with like, the real question is, or why are you so focused on my whatever? That one of the guys, they had messaged me. I turned in early. A girl and a guy had like knocked on my door at 11 p.m. trying to get me to go back out. And I told him the next day, I was like, oh, I just thought about like throwing all my clothes off and coming out in my boxers and all my glory. And he's like, whoa, 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 don't tempt me, or don't threaten to open the gate if you're not ready to grab the bull by the horns or something like that. But my point is, in that moment for him, that was frame control. He didn't get all awkward or bashful, whatever. He just showed me that he was in the ring, that he could play along. So leadership and frame control impact every aspect of your life, from pay raises, business deals, forging new relationships. But secondly, just a little lateral to that, or 90-degree approach to that, being charming works everywhere. And I have done this in gas stations. I've done this when I'm frustrated I remember nurses at a birthing center once. I've done this when you just need some information in a bookstore or whatever. Just being charming works. In fact, if you read, I think it's Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's kind of his line about, that's his whole story about Abraham Lincoln. It's essentially like honey to trap flies or whatever, better than bitter stuff. But I'm not talking about brown nosing. I'm not talking about kissing up here. What my point is, if you want to get things done, unless your intent is to raise the whole land to like burn it all down, being charming is going to work better, and it works everywhere. Also, bosses, key people of influence, getting projects down, waitresses. Just, I've applied that sort of charm to everything. I was introducing a key stakeholder to a VP at one of my last tech firms, and I leaned on a gambit that I stole from Mark Singh, who has the Unapologetic Man podcast, which is a great podcast. He releases twice a week, so go out there and give him a nod and tell him I sent you. He has a line about warriors will sing songs around campfires about you for generations to come. And I remember I was trying to introduce this developer from India, and she was in town, and I needed her to meet one of the VPs. And I remember writing in that, a busy VP. I said, hey, name, I want you to meet name. She's been critical to everything we've developed on the go-to-market side. In fact, warriors sing songs about her around campfires for generations to come. It's just a ha-ha line. Well, I got it from dating and I applied it to business connection. I didn't even have anything to gain out there in that particular incident. I wasn't trying to impress the developer, and I wasn't necessarily trying to impress the VP. I just needed to get something done, so I leaned on those tactics. Okay, number 4, confidence in your own perception of where you stand in the marketplace. It subliminally impacts how you relate with the world. So if you think you're an unattractive guy, if you think it's true in your life that women don't want to go out with you and you're lucky, I hate this line, and we're going to have to talk about this another day, but when men tell me they're so lucky to have their wife, okay, great. First off, I feel like I'm blessed to have my wife, and I do feel like I'm lucky, but I know that it wasn't by chance. Does that make sense? I know that it wasn't just by sheer luck that oh my God, she's select. No, man, I was dating 4 women when I met her. I knew all of it was intentional. I knew what I was doing, but I digress. Your perception of how you stand in the marketplace will dictate how you interact with other people in your life. And there's a guy that comes to mind at an office I know of. I'll try not to name names here, but he's always slumped over and he's a little heavy set. But even then, I mean, you can pull a lot of girls with a lot of extra weight on you. I'm sorry. Women have a tougher time in that regard as far as the beauty standard. The point of that is, when you find that you can walk around in a Target and women check you out, when you find that you can open your mouth and say something and make a girl smile and light up a girl's day, you walk with a certain swagger that you've earned. And my argument in this case is that you've earned that swagger. So you're walking around the appropriate way. That's not ego and excessive confidence. That's not based in reality. That's you understanding that you're an attractive man. That's you understanding that you bring value to the world because you've worked on that value and you've studied material like this and you've bettered your life. So now, an interesting example is if you're in a conference room and you're new, if you're in a boardroom rather, and you're kind of new to that group, you don't feel like you have to overspeak. You don't have to feel like you have to oversell yourself. You don't feel like you have to be opening your mouth necessarily because you know you have a certain intrinsic value. You know you belong in the room. And people, I promise you, if there's 10 people in a room and something goes hairy, they all look kind of naturally to 1 or 2 people that they intuitively know are the leaders. So they look to them for leadership because most people don't want to lead. So when you understand that you're a competent leader and that you're an attractive dater, you step into those roles naturally. It gives you endless practice in that role, so to speak. All right, a couple bonuses here. Man, being sexy feels good. And I'm telling you, I'm a guy that's ranged anywhere from 220 pounds to 170, where I honestly should be on a regular basis. I'm 5'11". So if I'm trim, lean, and mean, like I did coming back from my last deployment, I'll be about 165 to 170. Could do a bunch of pull-ups, look amazing. But at 220, I'm still fine because I understand I have a certain charm, attraction, and charisma. I understand that lots of women find me sexy. Secondly, on those bonuses, your wife seeing women attracted to you, it increases her attraction to you. That's social proof. Some people call it dread game. I'm not saying do it intentionally, but when she sees other women attracted to you, it reminds herself, oh, I made the right choice. Oh, I did a good job. Your kids seeing people respect you impacts their respect on you. That's a big one. I think about this all the time. Some of the things I even say on this podcast, is my legacy intact? Am I comfortable with my 2 daughters seeing this 20 years from now? And yeah, I want to tell them the truth. And then Communication practice creates wealth and opportunity. And that to me is just the bigger one, the biggest one. Like the way I relate to men, it stems from my confidence in dating. The way I understand where I fit in the marketplace, it stems from my confidence in dating. So all these things have created wealth in my life, have given me a life that I'm proud to transfer to my kids, have created a world where my wife doesn't have to work, and have created a world where I'm relatively debt free besides the house over my head. These things have directly stemmed from what I've done to work on myself and how I've applied that to the overall marketplace of interacting with people. Does that make sense? If you like this episode, I want you to like and subscribe. Find me on whatever platform you're on. Send me a message, put a comment down below. I'll see you in the next one.